All right, guys. So this one is part 3 of our 3-part series on the birthday message I would have sent to myself 20 years ago, basically. Again, and these are a collection of ideas that were originally one of my emails that I send out to my daily email, my Chew Crew email that I send out. And a lot of people liked it, so we're sharing it with you guys. Again, these may not be the things that resonate with you. These are just things that resonate with me, or their ideas or things I was just things that I was thinking about when I wrote this, when I'm thinking about me from 21, things to thinking about when I was like 41, right? And so with that said, hopefully you guys have found this series useful and or maybe got something from it. And let's dive into today's last section of ideas. All right, guys, if you want to check out our sponsors and support the podcast, give them a look. One of our sponsors is Athletic, ATHLETHC. They make microdose THC mints with other cannabinoids to produce a different function in the body. So they've got 3 main products, and bring it up here. If you guys are looking on the video podcast, they've got Flow, Power, and Rebound. For me, the Rebound one is the one I use probably the most often. The Flow and the Rebound, I haven't really used the Power as much, but the Flow and the Rebound one, as you can think of it, it's got CBD and everything else, and it's there to try to help you, get back from exercise and things like that. And at least for me, the effect that I get from it is it kind of just takes the edge off a little bit, if that makes sense. Like some people, maybe you have a drink, whatever, like you could just pop one of these, like the Rebound mints, and it kind of just it just makes me feel a little bit more relaxed, no big deal. And so again, I like the mints. I've used them off and on for the past year. They're perfectly fine. You're not going to it's not like the time you ate too many brownies and you started, seeing noises and hearing colors, nothing like that. Just, it's very mild. But like I said, for me, it just kind of takes the edge off. And sometimes when I'm doing creative work, I like the Flow mints. I'll take one and then kind of just, it relaxes my brain. And I feel like things are just flowing a little bit better, as it might say, to just try to help you get into a more relaxed state for creative work or whatever you're doing, even rolling sometimes. If you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website at athlethc.com, athletic.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu10 for 10% off. Also, guys, if you want to support our podcast, check out our buddies over at Epic Roll. Rollbjj.com is the website. They make a ton of terrific gear, everything from gis and rash guards and shorts, t-shirts, all kinds of different merch. I really like their no-gi gear. To me, it's the most comfortable and best fitting no-gi gear that I've can find for my body type. I'm not a huge guy, but I'm a thicker guy, and it fits me just right. And the material feels good. Like I get sometimes other stuff and I don't like the way that it fits. I don't like the way the shorts fit. Sometimes the material's kind of funky. And so they make a really good product. It's why I get my rash guards made through them. I'm getting my gis made through them right now at my gym. If you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website at epicrollbjj.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. And guys, if you want to check out our sponsor, Charlotte's Web, give them a look. They're one of the OGs in the CBD space. Again, for me, CBD is one of those products that I use towards the end of the night, and I sort of lump it together in my mind as a recovery thing. They also have a CBN product, which can be really useful for trying to support your sleep. But, they have a lot of different things, everything from the CBD, the CBN. They also have functional mushroom products, and they also have some different balms and rubs for sore muscles. If you want to check it out, you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. And again, I just tell people with their supplements, try it out for yourself, see what you think. Again, I use it. I do like their products. I'm not saying that because I'm like, hey guys, like, this is such a great product. You have to use it. Just try it out for yourself and see what you think. The first time I came across CBD, I was just like, this stuff doesn't work. This is just some random stuff, some snake oil. I used it, given to me from a friend, and I was like, CBD actually does work. And then so we eventually sought out a partnership with a company, and Charlotte's Web is one of the best companies in the market when it comes to CBD products. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going over to the Patreon at patreon.com/the Chewjitsu podcast. I'm sure you guys know how this works. Patreon is a platform where people can join up to support the things that they listen to, consume, or are interested in. And we have some different perks for you there. If you guys want to go to the Patreon, there you can look at the different perks and all the different content that we give to you on the back end and the ways that you can get a hold of us, direct messaging and so forth. And if you want to, check it out at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, and you can support the podcast you're listening to, and hopefully you guys enjoy listening to. Also, if you want to get my daily email that I send out, the Chew Crew daily email, to help you roll longer and grow stronger, kind of really what it is. Mostly like jiu-jitsu and lifting, diet, and then a bunch of philosophy stuff and then random stuff. I threw out some real weird ones the other day. Everybody was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? I was talking about like things like random things that irked me. It was like daylight savings time was one of them.
I don't know about that.
Got into male circumcision.
Yeah.
It was funny. Like I got a lot of people saying this is too much information. Like, fair enough. That said, if you guys enjoyed this, like this series that we've been doing with the different ideas, then you'll enjoy my emails. You can check them out at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. And when you join up, I'll give you a ebook and video guide that goes into some different ways to get more focused with your training. One of the things that I find from a lot of people is they don't really have a clear focus with their training. They're just kind of bouncing around. And if you can get focused with your training, you can make a lot more with a lot less training. This is one of the things I talk to people, like you don't have to train 6 days a week to get good at jiu-jitsu. You can train less. You just have to be very intentional about how you do it. And that book will give you some ideas on how to do that. So check it out at chewjitsu.net/join. And guys, with that said, let's get into this podcast. Today's one, last time we were talking a lot about simple financial decisions that I made with my wife mostly, and how important that is. And I think it's really important finding a good partner because, like, I mean, it's one of the most important decisions you're ever going to make in your life, right? Like your partner, like they're going to make or break you in a lot of ways. And so finding a good one's really important. And I've got a good one. So happy to have her. I don't talk about her a lot on the podcast, and I don't post a lot about her on the internet. But she's great. And, you know, it's one of those, I think I read a study that people who excessively post about their spouses, apparently there's a correlation between that and their likelihood of like having a lot of problems in the relationship, because, you know, it's almost like a compensation type of deal. Whereas me and Jess, we're great. So it's like, I will post about her from time to time, but I don't post about her like all the time. Like, oh, hey, like just letting you know. Usually there has been a couple times where like I'll get like a message from some woman on the internet that makes kind of a pass at me. And then afterwards I'll make sure to post up, hey guys, I love my wife. I'm married. I had
not that even means shit to people nowadays. Like some people don't care. Yeah. They know, and it just doesn't, it's not even a deterrent.
If you say it with the right type of conviction, they know, right? Like, so like I've been in situations where I obviously have my wedding ring on.
Yeah.
And I see someone, like there's a woman giving me some energy, possibly even doing that touchy thing on the arm. Like they were like, you know what I mean? Like where basically you're starting to like sort of break down barriers. I will purposely bring up, oh man, my wife, I love when my wife does that same thing or something, whatever, you know, like, I remember having a conversation with a woman when I was traveling, and she's being very, very friendly and whatever. And I could be mistaking, you know, energy, but I think I'm a pretty good judge about those things, right? I'm not one of those guys that thinks that every woman that smiles at me wants to date me. I don't think that, right? But when I do feel like I do have a certain sense of when women are becoming a little bit more friendly or being flirtatious or diving into realms in a conversation that, you know, normally you wouldn't do with someone, right? And I always bring, oh yeah, my wife, and I just let her know, just making sure, you know, without like saying, hey, like chill out, be like, you know, that usually does the trick.
Yeah.
You know, let them know. But anyway, we're going to get into a couple other ideas, and hopefully these are useful to you. First one, I have an immense amount of mental weight on my shoulders. I've grown used to it over the years as I've had to provide and to deliver for a lot of people. It's a lot of pressure, but I have a purpose in life, which lessens that. And I believe humans are meant to serve each other, because as we serve each other, we save ourselves in the process. I think a lot of people buy things and get into certain behaviors, possibly even drugs and things like that, to sort of work as a sort of salve to fill the void that they feel in their lives. So a couple things on this. I think people are meant to serve each other. I think there's a beautiful thing when you can find a way to do something that serves other people and benefits other people. It's a beautiful thing where it almost is like you have two people that are standing and they're like linked with their hands. This is how the mental image in my head is. They're like linked with their hands and they start to lean back. Like one person needs the help. One person needs to help the other. And by and large, like by doing that, they're both supported. If they let go and they don't hold each other up, then they fall apart. They both fall. And I think that's for a lot of people. I've met a lot of people who they felt life-changing effects by having purpose of actually taking care of other people, right? And I think that that's part of, I think it's kind of wired in us. And I think if you can find a way to serve other people, it's a beautiful thing, and you feel very fulfilled doing so, especially when you can see the effects of your work. Not saying everybody's like this, maybe some people aren't, but I think a lot of us, if you experience it, I think that it's a powerful thing. I think this is one reason why people start to like get into coaching and teaching. And that's why I think coaching is a very noble profession, because a lot of times if you're coaching or teaching, you've built yourself up and you've helped yourself, and you've had these effects, and now you're just sharing it with other people. And then the other part of it is that by doing that, you then have this purpose. And again, I think a lot of times, people search to fill some void in their life, and they do it with a number of different means. But I think whenever you go back to like meaningful work and purpose, when you have purpose and you have a life that you enjoy living, and you do the things that you truly enjoy, going back to our ideas when we were talking about the stoic stuff, you actually have thought about this very deeply. What do you actually want this whole thing to be? What do you find important? What really like satisfies you as a person? When you can figure that stuff out, like that's where you don't feel that like constant gnawing at you that you're supposed to go buy this thing, or you're supposed to go do this thing, and you're very at ease. And so again, I think again, I have pressure on me, and I don't want you to think that I'm some sort of like my blood pressure is super high or anything. It's not, but there's like, if I wake up, there's always a pressure. I'm the primary breadwinner in the house. So I've got a wife and a little son that are like, I have to provide for them. There's people in the gym, hundreds of people that come in this place, and this is the place that they come to. And if this gym wasn't around, it would be detrimental to them in a lot of ways. Many people would be devastated if the gym just fell apart tomorrow. Like this place they've been coming to for 2 decades, and all of a sudden it's gone, right? There's people that needs assistance for their competitions. I have business partners who also like need me to provide, or need me to show up or do my part in things, right? So there's a lot of pressure. And I think about it, if you had taken me from like before, because all this stuff has gradually happened. If you had taken me like from say like when I was 20 and all of a sudden just plopped me down into my role now, I mean, I would be crushed. I wouldn't be ready for it. It's almost like lifting. You know how like if you lift weights, you're gradually increasing, and you get to a point where like maybe a weight that would have crushed you years ago, you can support it. Your bone structure, your muscles, everything is able to, like, like when I first started lifting weights, if you had put 405 on my back and I was trying to squat it, it would have crushed me. But there was one point I remember when I squatted 405 for like 15 reps. Built myself up to it.
That's crazy.
You got used to it, right? You get used to that kind of weight. I can't do that much weight now. I don't do that. I don't really see that. But I did it once. And so again, but you build up to it and you get used to bearing that weight, and it's even like in jiu-jitsu though, right? Because in jiu-jitsu, I was thinking about this. I'm sure you've had this experience. I remember the first time in one of my very early tournaments, the guy had me in a headlock and he's squeezing me, and I'm freaking out, like just trying to fight out of this headlock. Now, like, I just kind of like someone puts, the other day we had like a newer guy come into the gym. He's like 270 something pounds and squeezing my head. Big dude, big strong fella, squeezing my head. And I'm just kind of laying there like, I think I want to have lunch later. What am I going to eat? Whatever. I'm just like not even worried about it. It's so relaxing.
You're used to the pressure.
You're used to the pressure. And so I think that the pressure's built up. And so I couldn't have dealt with it back then, but you get used to it. You can like add a little bit more on. But again, I think it's important that the pressure's fine, especially if you have the purpose that goes with it. Goes back to we talked about in the episode 1, right? Like the sort of Nietzsche quote that if you know your why, you can endure anyhow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think that just the gradual, like you said, like lifting weights or you're just able to just take it on, and then you can do a little more.
I mean, you probably feel that, right? You probably feel some pressure as a dad and a provider for your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's multiple things. Like, obviously providing, and my wife is, we both provide. She has her own business and she does great. And we both kind of, but we have like our roles are kind of split. Like, I do a lot of childcare stuff and she does some childcare stuff, and we're both kind of, it's almost like our roles are kind of split 50-50 almost. At least that's what I like to think. Sometimes she probably does a little more than I will, but like and just having the ability to have just that purpose. Like, I know it's worth it. I know if I really dealing with a lot, like we talked about prior episode, making sure we have kind of a game plan. These are top things I need to take care of. And if those are taken care of, then things are going to kind of keep moving along smoothly. But yeah, there's always pressure, and you handle more. You feel like you can do more. It's not always the best to just kind of, like you said, pile more stuff on your.
Well, there's a certain point where you again, just like training, maybe you overtrain.
Sure.
You go a little too hard.
Yeah.
There's a certain point, I think, for all of us where we try to do too much, and you kind of have like kind of a breaking point. You're saying, okay, I got to back off.
Realize you got to step back a little bit, and that's a hard thing to do, like we talked about, like taking a step back and doing a little bit less because you feel like you should be doing more. Because that's what you're used to. It's kind of what you've built yourself to do is like take on more and more and more. But it gets to a point where it's just, you're inefficient or the quality of your work declines and maybe things start slipping through the cracks. The business isn't running as smoothly, right? And you got to step back and reassess. And
that's an interesting parallel. I never thought about it that way, but it reminds me of my thoughts with like training, right? Because when you think about training, right, I advocate. I don't know why I added an R to that. Advocate. It's that Kentucky coming out. Hey, y'all, going to advocate. It's always funny. People like when they're talking to me, they're like, where are you from? From Kentucky. Like, you don't sound like you're from Kentucky. So I got rid of my accent. Yeah. Intentionally. Because I heard myself speak and I said, oh man, I sound like a hick. Anyway, but I typically advocate for people when they go into training to like not kill yourself all the time.
Right.
You can get a lot from leaving a little in the tank, and to still Lee Haney's quote from bodybuilding, I sort of focus on stimulate, not annihilate.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people come in, they just want to annihilate themselves. I just want to get destroyed from training. They want to be laying in a pool of sweat every time they step on the mats. Whereas, it's fine somewhat to some degree when you're young. But a lot of times, again, it goes back to this idea of where it's laziness or inefficiency, because, you can get a lot if you're training with a lot of intent and not training as hard or not training as hard as often. You can get a lot from training with a lot of intent versus just coming in and training really hard with no intention. And again, when it comes to like the 10,000 hour type of rules, those kinds of things, it's not just about time in, it's about deliberate time in. That was the focus of the studies that guys like Dr. Andrew Erickson's done. It wasn't simply just time in. It wasn't like you just go flop around in your training sessions, because he said that like the thing that separated the highest achievers from the guys that were in the middle of the pack was that the highest achievers were incredibly focused on what they were doing. They were very deliberate, and they couldn't maintain that deliberate pace, that focus for very long.
Yeah.
And so, but going back to it, with a lot of people with like their lives and business and everything else, it's almost, they treat it just like training, where if they have like a spare moment, they've got to go do more, opposed to like, no, man, this is recovery time. This is recharge time. You got to have it. You got to have it for your training, right? Well, like if you're doing creative work, even if you're just like a mom or dad and you're trying to like be the best parent you can be, you probably need some recharge time somewhere in there, and you got to find it. Like I try to give like my wife, like when I'm home, I'm like, all right, I'm taking Luke out. Like I'm leaving for a couple days for a trip. And so like this morning, as soon as I got up, I was like, I'm taking him outside. I'm gonna give her the house for a few hours, just let her hang out so she can just have some her time. So that, before I get ready to leave. Yeah. And then he'll get ready to probably take a nap here in a little bit. And then so she'll have a few hours at least to herself to recharge and hold down the fort for a day and a half while I'm gone.
Yeah. I think so. I take the kids to Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. Which is a little challenge sometimes, because my daughter's like, we're halfway through class. She's like, Dad, let's go. And I'm like, not today. I fell for this last time. I was like, we got some black belts here. I get some rounds in. But like, it gives my wife some time. She's got quite a few things on her plate right now, and she's finishing up school and doing stuff. So she needed a little time, I think. It's good, and I'm happy to do it. It's I think it's good, because then she's better. Like she's more engaged, and I'm the same thing for me. Like, awesome time to train and get away a little bit and have some me time. I think it's very important to do. So 100%. I think doing that for each other is incredibly important. And also kind of just, it's almost like you front load a little bit of that time, just because, they're going to be a little bit more strapped with, the kids or something like that. So it's not a bad idea to do that. Yeah. 100%. Well, you just like, even like last Friday, like I took Luca to the gym, and then, we went, and after we're done at the gym, we went to the grocery store. And then what was it, was it Saturday? Something was Saturday. Me and him went to the gym. We had to drop off a table. But me and Luca for pretty much the whole day Saturday was like
got up in the morning, went outside, and we were playing, got done, we took a shower together, then we unscrewed a table, took the table to the gym, got done with that, then we went to the coffee shop, which he loves going to the coffee shop, hung out there, read a book, and then brought him home, put him down for a nap. Like, you know, she had the whole like morning to herself.
Yeah,
She was
it's good.
clean, whatever. It's good because you, like you said, you take care of them. So this way, when you got to go do your stuff, you know, they're charged up so they can take care of you too, and you guys can go back and forth.
Sure.
But again, just it's like kind of going back to why would I have written that to myself 20 years ago? Because again, there's so many things where you see online where it's just like people are just somehow like, I'm a millionaire. I just sit on my ass and do nothing and just let the money roll in. Woo-wee. Maybe someone's happy doing that. I'm not. I would not be happy doing that. I would be like just sitting around like, I need something to do. And so it's kind of like, again, helping me understand like this isn't the life that you want. And you wouldn't even feel satisfied if you had that life.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that again, society puts out there, and a lot of people use it as a trap, basically as like a lure of bait that's not even real. Because you look at like a lot of social media stuff, it's all smoke and mirrors, BS. You know, people selling you a BS lifestyle that they don't live so that they can sell it to you and whatever else. All right, next one. I have no debt and I avoid it like the plague. So as the story goes, when I was 22, I was up to my ears in it, and I got out of it. I'll never go back. Being in debt turns you into a slave. See, they even write about that in the Bible, right? I don't care if you're a Christian or not, right? Or if you're a believer or not, but like you can look at like there's lots of parts of the Bible you can look at it, and it's just good wisdom, right? And they talk about that idea. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, like, if you go back and read about the banking system in like the Renaissance, like Christians weren't allowed to were not allowed to loan money to each other because it's like, you know, you're basically putting people into slavery, so essentially. So the Jewish people, they would loan money to the Christians to build things, and banking was considered a dirty thing. Like that kind of money was like, so they weren't allowed to do like the normal jobs and professions that were considered upright, like, you know, guild stuff like crafting and everything else. So they would sell on these banker tables. There was like I forgot the word, but it's like banker table, which is where we get the word bank. And they would go into the ghettos. All right, here you go. And they'd get some money. They'd go fund the projects. And you kind of get the sort of the birth of our banking system through that. And, but again, you know, that'll take anything that you have and it'll sour your feelings for it. Again, going back to our friend from episode 2 that we talked about, where again had this really nice, cool Corvette that I think he told me his monthly bill on it. Granted, this is like 15 years ago, was like $700 and something a month. I'm like, bro, that's a lot of money.
It is, yeah.
That's a lot of money, bro. Because you're thinking like, okay, like today's money, that's almost probably close to $1,000 every month.
Oh, at least.
I mean, close to $1,000 for every month for a car. Like, and then if you're not making enough to service that, and that represents a good chunk of your money, like that car, man, it ain't gonna look good. Like you're gonna look at that car and you're gonna hate that damn thing. You know, same thing for homes. I've known guys where like you go into their home, beautiful home, and then you sort of get away from it a little bit. And you get to talk to them. Maybe they have a drink and they get a little loose with you, speak a little bit more candidly, and they're like, I freaking hate this place, because they hate it, you know, versus like, again,
it's like a prison.
It's a prison, 100%, you know? And so, you know, for me, like with me and my wife, like after we got out of debt, it was like, ain't going back. And if you guys don't know the story, when I'll give you the quick briefing. When I was 22, I was dating a woman who rushed me into buying a home. I bought a home, bought a new car. We had a wife, or not a wife, excuse me, had a dog. So we had a dog, new car, new home, living the American dream. Yep. I was doing what society told me to do. And I was working a ton of hours and, you know, doing whatever. And I did it okay. I was happy to do it, right? Whatever. And then found out she was cheating on me with a guy that she met in EverQuest.
Yeah. Is that a video game?
Yeah. It's one of those MMOs. So like she'd stay up real late playing the games. And then, you know, she started acting real distant, whatever else. And then found out she cheated on the guy on EverQuest. So fun story. So, you know, I got out from it and then sort of adjusted my life's sort of aim and then went from there. And, you know, yeah, that's what happened. And so I never wanted to go back into massive tons of debt. that I, that put me up to my eyeballs and stressed me out, because I remember that feeling. It was awful.
Yep.
Around that same time, by the way, I had helped my coach start a gym, and I had signed the lease, and the lease at the time was close to $2,000 a month, which isn't much for a place, but it was a small place, and still $2,000 for me was a sizable chunk of money.
Sure.
I don't know if I made $2,000 a month that back then. Maybe it probably just cleared around $2,000 a month. So it was like, that was my paycheck. And I remember between all that, and then you have that signature where every now and then I would get them, because they'd be late on their bills, and I would get a message from the landlord, "Hey, where's the money?" Every month. Stress, dude, it's so stressful.
Yep.
I don't want to go back to that. And so even like with our business, like we're so like, anytime we want to do something, like we're like, how can we shore up a little extra funds to like do this? Like when we bought the mats, I was like, let me see if I can come up with a cool sale to like get the money for the mats, instead of us like having to like go into our savings or whatever. Let's see if we can do something, So anyways, we avoid debt like the plague, and, keep ourselves from that sort of bank slavery. All right. Another one for you guys. And again, this is from the Bible, and I know that everybody like gets real touchy. Again, I don't care if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, if you're a deist, if you're a whatever. I think that some books, they have wisdom to give you. It's like, there's a lot of like, they call it broicism, like the Stoics that the alpha bros sort of like go with, and it's obnoxious. And, I know that some people just despise anything Christian. So I'm not trying to like convert you to anything, but I'm just saying like there's some wisdom in there that you could read, completely devoid of anything, what your beliefs are. And there's also some kooky stuff in there. You get into some of the books, and there's some stuff that you're like, these views are a little outdated. So, fair. But there is a often misquoted Bible verse. This has to be the biggest one, the one that you hear all the time. Everybody quotes it, right? Which is, people will say that money is the root of all evil. The actual quote is, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, depending on the Bible translation. And, for me, I work to make more money. I try to make the business more money. I have investments, and I do those things to provide security for my family, sponsorships and opportunities for my students, jobs for people, healthcare for employees, cool events for the gym. I donate to charities I believe in. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. As I said, I don't really like money that much. Like, I don't like, a lot of people get sort of fixated on like dollar signs and like sort of a number as like a scoreboard. For me, money's cool only what I can do with it. Like, like this morning I took a picture of I just thought we got a new fence put in, and like we got the little property back there or whatever else. And it was like, it was like a cool, like bright morning. I'm watching my wife and son play out there, the dogs running around the backyard. And I'm like, we've got, just 4 acres lined up in front of me. I'm like, this is pretty damn cool. This is a good life, whatever, that's what's cool. Or even like, one of the guys at the gym, he went and competed at Pans this weekend, right? Helped make that happen. He does some work for me, and, gave him a little bit extra money to get down there to do it. The Jiu-Jitsu Open, like we create some opportunities for people there. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It can be such a cool thing that you can do stuff with money. It doesn't have to be this gross thing. I think a lot of times when people think of business and money, they get this ick feeling. And, because they think of like some dirty, skeezy business guy who's ready to like kill humans so that they can make a few bucks, right? Like, hey, we're going to dump this radioactive waste into the pond to save 3 cents per item. That's going to make us X amount of dollars. Again, I know, I understand that, right? There's a certain level where people can get really, can get greedy, but at the same time, like when you meet a lot of small business owners, they do some cool stuff. Like the place that I worked with my mother worked at Masterson's for a while. So they helped pay for her funeral.
Oh, wow.
They didn't have to do that. Right. They didn't have to do that at all. They helped support her. Right. I remember I started working there when I was like, I guess technically was too young to work. But they were like, hey, you get a job, whatever. they did all kinds of things for her and for me that they never had to do, but they were just like good people. You know, they would give us like all the employees, they all ate for free. And I mean, I remember I was like, my first time ever like doing like a serious bulk, I was chowing down back there, right? Like they had like chicken breast and like salad and rice. I'm like eating. I mean, you know, they took great care of their employees when I worked there.
Yeah.
They in ways that they didn't have to, that weren't normal, right? So I mean, every day, like there was like a thing where you could just go to the buffet line. That's fresh food they just made that morning. Eat as much as you like. And so I've seen that over and over again, where these business owners can do some really cool stuff. And so, again, I think it's something in today's society, especially too, where you get into this thing where anybody that has a little bit of money, it's not seeing that they produced something. They're like, oh, who did they take from? You know, they're taken away from someone, as if there's some sort of finite amount of wealth in the world, right? And so I think people throw that quote around, but it's often misquoted. And when I was younger, I had that same sort of thing. I thought like money was ick. You know, like you're taking from people constantly versus like, well, no, like you're providing something for them that they view as valuable enough to exchange with the dollars or the money that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a bad mindset that I had when I was younger, because I thought it was just that, like, money's just bad. It's all bad, whatever. You know,
yeah, how you make it, right? Like if you make it in a way that's, I don't want to say honorable per se, but like just you make it in a way that is good. You feel like you're helping somebody in the process, like you're giving something, they get something valuable for that money. Like if they pay you, if you have someone that you do coaching with or someone I do coaching with, like I feel like I'm helping them achieve something that would, maybe they would have a really hard time achieving on their own, or wouldn't maybe be able to achieve. Who knows? I mean, and then what you do with it, right? Like, what do you do with that money? You've got businesses and you've got, you know, the gym, and people are taking care of, people are able to like enjoy working at the gym and help students out and things like that, and give people opportunities and stuff. So I think like what you do with it too, it's good to be able to give back. I think there's some, you feel, makes you feel good, like to be able to give back a little bit. That's something I think I need to be better at. If I had to look at, you know, it's like you want to give back to people. And I think that's a good use of money. It's kind of like, and you have,
if they're my people.
Yeah, you have a community. Exactly.
Yeah,
you have
I won't give anybody money on the street.
Oh, I don't either.
Yeah.
I try to give them food if I have it.
Yeah.
If I have food, I give them food.
If they're hungry or something like that, whatever. But if they're like asking for money, I'm like, you ain't getting it from me, bro. You know, because it's like,
I try to give food.
My whole thing is like, because I know you're probably going to go use it on drugs, so I'm not going to support your drug habit.
Well, we don't know. You don't know. The only way you can
pretty
kind of,
pretty
the
good
only
chance.
way,
Pretty good chance. Bro.
Hey man, if I give you like a burger, or like I give you like some food that I've got, or like a, you know, like I have meat sticks all the time. I'll carry around meat sticks.
Sure.
And like, I'll give you that.
Well, I mean, I remember like I was in, like, I've been traveling at places, and you know, some guy will say, "Hey man, get some money." Like, what do you need money for? And like, I'm hungry. Whatever. You want some food? I'll buy food. You know, like I'll buy you some food.
Yeah.
But you like said, like, you know, the even like charities and stuff. You know, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to add $1 to so and so?" I'm like, "What's the charity?" And I don't know anything about it. No, I'm not. I'm not going to give you money. Emerson has an essay on that. He talks about he's like talking about, you know, everybody's asking for money, and he said, you know, like, I don't know who these people are. They're not my people. He's like, if they're my people, I'll give them the clothes off my back. I'll give them anything.
Yeah.
But to these charity, he calls them like charities of fools. Like all these, everybody's asking for more money, whatever, and you have no idea what happens with the monies. I mean, how many charities that you see where the money's supposed to go do something, and then all of a sudden you see that the person who's organizing the charity all of a sudden buys a big fat mansion, where you're like, hold on a second, that money was supposed to go to so and so.
What percent?
Yeah,
you know, percentage of the money.
So I don't do that, but I'll if it comes to like my people, I'll take care of them
for sure. Yeah, and then you do that through your businesses and being successful yourself. You have to like fill up your own cup, right? You have to fill up your own cup, and you can pour it to other people.
Yeah.
Like if you're not able to do that, you're not gonna have anything to give.
Next one, guys. I screw up as a dad, a husband, a coach, and a business partner a lot. But I'm reflective towards it and treat it like if it was a role in the gym, where, you know, if I mess up, I think reflect on it and try to improve. I write down in my journal every night. There's an idea that the Stoics talk about, like basically a daily review. I have goals for the next day, and I have my review of each night. And I write to myself on how I could improve. It's basically a conversation with yourself about how I could improve each day to try to be the person I want to become. I'll never become, this is a thing, I'll never become the person I want to be, because it's an ideal that's completely unattainable. But I'm trying to reach that ideal. I'm trying to work towards that and become the person I want to be, right? Like we all as parents, right? There's times where we do things that we're not happy about. Maybe we lost our temper or whatever, but you don't want to ever be the person that loses their temper. You want to be even kill at all times and be able to do things level-headed. And sometimes we slip. But again, it's being reflective, because there's this idea that, you don't lose, you learn. There are no mistakes or just learning opportunities. That's only if you reflect on them. Because like a lot of people, I will say this in life, I have plenty of family members who have made some mistakes in their life and they keep making them. I have friends that keep making the same damn mistakes over and over again.
Yeah.
You keep doing the same things, the same behaviors, the same habits that led you to the place that you don't like being. So plenty of people make the same mistake over and over again. Like early on in grappling, I remember I had a knack for getting caught in triangles. I led with my head all the time. I'm passing, I'm getting, and I would always have my hands staggered, getting triangle choked left and right. But anytime I would watch the videotapes of my matches, this is dating myself a little here, VHS tapes, that was the thing where you'd like put the tape in the little thing and you press the button, you had to rewind it. I'd watch those VHS tapes, and I remember I would fast forward past my matches. I didn't want to watch them. I wanted to go watch my wins, because man, it hurt my little ego to like see me getting beat.
Yeah.
But it was only after I actually started reflecting on those that I was able to address those issues. And I think that the habit of journaling, not just to like sort of just random brain dump, but like checking in with yourself at the end of the night. How did things go? Like, were there things, and it's a conversation more or less, for at least for me. It was like, how did things go? Did you do the things that you wanted to do that day? Did you act in a way that you wanted to act? Were there times that you screwed up? Where did you lose your temper? A lot of times, like one of my things is to remind myself to be quiet in conversations, to listen more, because I'm really bad about it, because a lot of my work is involved in me talking. And even in the gym, I have kind of this thing where, like when I come into a class, I typically have like a little monologue that I'll go through. Like, this is what, if you ever like watch one of those talk shows, and the first 5 minutes of the talk show is them talking, kind of getting the audience going. And then they go into the bits and the segments. So a lot of times, like in the morning, as an example, Monday morning comes through, I've got some story from the weekend. Oh man, you guys should have seen this, right? Like me and Luke is on the toilet and he's talking about his penis, right? Like whatever. Just something ridiculous, right? Just something that's just to get everybody laughing, whatever.
Yes. Usually the case as a parent.
Yeah.
Something.
Oh, dude, it was so funny. I've told you this. He's sitting on the potty, and like he's like, getting potty trained, and he's peeing, and then he started pooping, and he's pooping like he's grunting, like he starts popping a chubby, and he's like, Dad, I got a big penis. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, hey, I'm like, just trying not to laugh, because I don't want to start smiling and encourage it.
Yeah.
So I'm just deadpan looking at him, and he's like, Luke could not have small penis. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, kid. And then in my head, I'm thinking that. And then Jess, she's in the other room. She goes, it starts this early? I was like, apparently it does.
Dude,
I don't know.
It starts early.
Yeah. We become enamored with this thing.
They figure it out. They're like, oh, what's that?
Yeah. So, but I have like a little story, little monologue, but then like I try to, after that, and once I get everybody talking, then I try to sit back and listen more, so I don't dominate conversations, because I have I hate when I do it, when all of a sudden I realize I've talked to someone and I never got more out of them, because that's like a thing that you learn if you want to be a good conversationalist. If you want people to really enjoy hanging out with you and talking with you, just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
It's powerful. So I
ask questions.
Ask questions and let them go. So I'm really bad about that sometimes. I try to shut my mouth, like when I'm in conversations. But anyway, you write that thing out and you reflect on it, and then you think about what happened. You can do the same thing for your training. If you're done training for the day and you're leaving, like I had a conversation with one of our members in the my master's vault program, and he was talking about how like he's making so many mistakes he doesn't know where to start. And I was like, well, name one thing that happened the other day. And he like couldn't give me anything. I said, bro, like, here's what I want you to do. Like, I want you to go train. The next time you're done training, no inputs, no podcasts on the way home, no nothing. Just like, maybe if you want to turn on some music, that's fine, but let your brain wander. And I want you to replay the roles in your head over and over again and think about what happened. A lot of times it's really hard to be reflective if you're taking constant inputs and you never have downtime. And you have to have those moments of recharging where you're not constantly being battered by more stimulation, more dopaminergic, drives to swipe and scroll. I was like, just take a little bit and let's like kind of go from there. And so you got to be reflective. And so that's It's important. So we all screw up. We all do stupid stuff. We all do things that we're not happy about, that weren't the person that we want to become. And so you got to be very reflective about that. I think that's kind of how you get better at jiu-jitsu. It's how you get better at like everything, is if you're reflective about it and then you make adjustments to that. You know, it's not just this mistakes that matter, but like how you adjust to them.
Mm-hmm. I think journaling for me has been helpful in processing something, which is, again, being kind of reflective. That's part of the whole thing. But it's just like sometimes if something's in my head and it's just like constantly spinning and writing it down and kind of,
because you're pretty like, you get something in your head, it gets stuck.
Yeah, I ruminate. So it's one of those things where it kind of helps me just kind of work through it and kind of start to get out of that loop. Because sometimes you'll just replay it, the same thing over and over. So just having a different way to kind of have that conversation, seeing it on paper, taking the time, because it takes longer to write it out. It's almost like you kind of sit with it a little bit longer. And it's been helpful for me when I feel like there's something, you know, and even like seeing something, maybe you think it's a big deal and you write it out and you read it back and like, that doesn't seem like a big deal at all. It's like I'm making it such a huge thing in my head and it's really not that. So just something that's helped me, you know. I think I like the idea of processing, but also I like the idea of almost kind of like taking an inventory of like how things went. What can I do better? What can I learn from?
Yeah, I do that. Like I take an inventory of the day, plan my next day ahead of me. So when I wake up in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I already know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Efficiency, right?
Yeah,
talk about that.
But I think the best time is before it's time. Because if I wake up in the morning and I plan out my day in the morning, the day's already happening. Versus like nighttime, it's quiet.
Yeah,
it's like before the storm. You know, I'm like, what's my battle plan for the next day? But that idea of like dumping that out, I think it's really important because it's like it's something to do with it, right? And there's I think Abraham Lincoln, he was famous about doing this, where if say someone really irked him, did something and he was just pissed off, he would write a letter about the person. He'd write a letter to the person and it would be the most mean, scathing letter, and then he would put it in a box and just, they found a ton of these, like where he wrote them and then put them in a box, didn't touch them. There's one like General McClellan could have potentially ended the Civil War by like, because Robert E. Lee was in a bad spot and he could have just like pushed forward and like caught him, but he didn't. And then the guy got away and then the war kept going. And he's like, you idiot. You know, like and then he put it into a box and then he wrote the letter that he actually sent to him. And I mean, that's helpful. If you're really angry about something, like just journal, like get it out and say whatever you want to say. And then like, okay, done with that. All right, now I can come about this a little bit more level-headed. So that one there, again, because again, as we're talking about these, I'm painting a nice picture of myself, but I screw up a hell of a lot. And so just sort of putting it out there. Sometimes I am a grumpy butthole. Sometimes I'm a asshole. I can be a complete dick sometimes, just like the rest of us. I'm a flawed human being, 100%. The last one we'll go into here is that I guard myself from distractions. This comes in all shapes and sizes, social media, different business ventures. It's the paradox of focus. To achieve more, you have to focus on less. Going back to the idea, I think we shared this on episode 2, that subtraction is of more importance than addition. We always think we need to add more, do more, consume more, read more. But a lot of times it's getting more from less. That's more important. You know, in your jiu-jitsu, it's better to be more focused, because think about it this way. From a defensive element, it's fine. You're going to learn a lot about a little bit of stuff everywhere, right? You're going to learn a lot about all these different positions, but you're not going to go that deep. You're going to have that wide, shallow bit of knowledge. And that's helpful because, you know, if you know a little bit about, for instance, like leg locks, if you know a little bit about leg locks, you can typically anticipate when they're happening. Oh, he's reaching for that leg. He's doing that leg entry. Oh, okay, cool. You don't have to be a leg wizard to understand that they're going for a leg lock when you know some basic entries and leg locks, right? But when it comes to offense, you're only really going to have a handful of really dialed in areas. And so your job is to go deep on your offense. And then in your defensive areas, right? Like, unless you need to be there more, you kind of have like a generalized knowledge. So this is like the case of like, hey, it's good to experiment because it gives you more understanding of what's possible to defend yourself against it. But when you're like thinking about your style, your A game, you go deep in those areas and you spend years in these areas to develop them. So that what happens is when you pull someone into that position, you then have the ability to have this like information, this muscle memory developed, this just sense of what's going on. It's basically having a map, and you know all the back roads, the side roads, the main roads, you have it all lined out, and then you bring someone in that hasn't trained nearly as long as you in this particular position. That's the goal, right? And that's useful. So with that, like, again, you got to be focused. And this is with everything. You want to be a good dad, good husband, good at business, whatever. You got to limit the distractions, and they come in different shapes and sizes. I think for most people, if they're honest, the social media stuff is really tough for a lot of people these days. I want to say that I read that Tim Cook, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he didn't say that, but the Apple CEO or whatever, he said something like, he said something recently, if this quote is true, that he was basically saying, like, I wish people would put their phones down and just, if you're staring at phones more than you're staring at people in the eyes, it's like it's a bad life kind of thing, you know? So he said something to that degree, right? Maybe it's like a misquote, because sometimes they put up fake quotes and stuff. So much fake stuff on the internet. But so again, going back to it, if people were like honest with themselves, a lot of social media issues, but then there's other stuff, obviously, you know, spending, you know, binge watching too much. You got it.
Yeah. He said Tim Cook's quote unquote put the phone down message. It says basically urge users to reduce screen time and stop endless quote unquote endless scrolling and spend more time in nature. He emphasized the device should not replace in-person human connection, advocated for using technology to create rather than for constant consumption, often advising users to turn off notifications. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. Chew, you're 2 for 2, man.
Yeah. So but it's such a smart idea. Like,
I mean, it's great to hear that from somebody who, like, his whole business is people using his devices.
But bro, the thing is like, when you look at that, like those guys in Silicon Valley, they don't let their kids use that stuff.
Right.
Like there was the whistleblowers from the congressional hearings that on Facebook and stuff. They were talking about how they don't let their kids, the people at like the high levels of the executives, they don't let their kids touch this technology. But your kids, they don't give us they don't care. You know, it's like they know what's up.
Well, I think you're right. I think they do have such a deep understanding, the research and development, and you're learning basically, well, how do I make this thing more user friendly or more addicting, or maybe that's not more addicting, but maybe
100%. I mean,
I don't know if that's the intent, right? Let's think about intent. I don't know. Maybe it's like,
why wouldn't it be the intent?
Oh man, you'd like to think that people want to make their money in a more wholesome way, I guess. Yeah. But you're right. The more people use the device, the more device you'll sell, and the more the desire will be for these things. That is true, but maybe like him saying that, maybe he's actually a good dude. I don't know him, and I don't know if he's a good dude or not. Maybe he's just saying this to appear a certain way. But man, like, it make you feel as a human, like if you run this big thing and you're successful, but your intention is also for people to have like a good balance of technology and in-person kind of activity and communication. I don't know. I guess it's a half glass full versus half glass empty. I guess if I don't know, I try to find some good, and I think it gives me an easier way to process the world. Yeah. I don't think everybody's just a terrible human.
I don't think everybody's a terrible human.
It's not. I'm not saying you think that, but like when you look at the media or the news, it's all you kind of get is negative stuff. You get very little positive. So I think like trying to find little things like that, and it's like, oh, well, maybe there's still a good thing in people. Well, you can get jaded with stuff and like really think everything's negative.
I think for a lot of those guys, those companies become these monsters that kind of grow out of their own, that grow past their own control, you know?
Of course. Like AI, I think, is going to be, you know, well out of our control.
Well, even like Facebook Meta, there's probably all kinds of decisions he has no idea that are being made. Like Mark, he's like, he's one person. He's probably he's not getting all.
There's no way you could keep.
There's no way, right? There's too many employees and stuff, and you know, then it becomes this monster that has a board. They have public investors and things like that, and so you got to make money. You know, this is why Richard Branson took his company Virgin public, or he took it public and then he took it private again, because he was like, he said, I hated that I couldn't make long-term decisions that were better for the company because I had to give up on short-term gains. It would be interesting to see what would happen if, like, let's say Meta was like a private company and they didn't have they could basically make decisions that wouldn't necessarily always lead to like more money, maybe they'd make the same decisions. But I wonder, because it's like, again, if they wanted to make a decision that said, hey, we're going to like, we know what it's doing to kids' brain. All the data's out. We already see it.
Yeah.
There's no question about it, right? We know what it's doing. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and put some different controls on it. We're going to take off some of these algorithmic things that make this thing more addicting. And we're going to take a hit in it in the short term, but the long term is it'll be better for society. You could do that if you're private, can't do it public, because then they're like, oh, he's leading to a drop in revenue. Got to get rid of that guy. But at the same time, there's also reports from these whistleblowers where they knew what they were doing, like where they would have these things where they would target young girls, where if the young girl made a post and then deleted it really quickly, then they knew that she was more susceptible to buying something because she was in a state of like maybe being self-conscious. And so it would be a way to sell her something because she's in because you get a little boost of dopamine when you buy something, right? Retail therapy. So boom, like let's give her some retail therapy while we know she's in a bad state. And they knew they were doing it. They didn't care. And so I think I think at a certain point, they just, again, the love of money, not money, the love of money, the love of seeing that number grow because you want to be on a certain list on a magazine or have your company valued at X, Y, or Z, right? Versus like, what's the ramifications of this thing? Then again, I'm not in his situation, and I don't envy it. I wouldn't want to have to like sit in that chair that he's in and like have to make those decisions, because that would probably be some crazy
tough place to be.
Heck yeah, it would,
because you have to balance, making sure that people are taken care of as far as financially, that people have jobs. And that was the whole thing with the CEO that United, the CEO that got shot, right? There's like people like, well, it's a human being. How could you celebrate that? And they're like, well, he was they're like the highest denier of claims for people that need healthcare, and he was doing some things that maybe were unfair or setting people up for, maybe dying and not getting the care they need. And it's like, but it's still a human. So there's this contrast.
It's wrong. It's wrong.
Well, there's a lot wrong with both.
Oh, sure.
Like if you can find flaws in both sides of how.
But I don't like that idea of saying we get to go kill people now.
Oh,
so like,
of course.
So it's like, again,
of course that's wrong. Yes, but it's also wrong to just deny for the purpose of trying to make more money.
That's because the system's screwed up. Right? They get to make that decision. That's where there's someone, I forgot, they were trying to do a bill where they're trying to like bust up the insurance companies a little bit. I'm like, I'm all for that, because our healthcare system, I love America and I love Americans, but one of our screwed up systems is our healthcare. It is. Like, we have great healthcare professionals, but our insurance companies and stuff, it's so screwed up. I don't know. That is a bipartisan issue that you could unanimously get everybody behind, like for the most part. But again, there's still lobbying groups getting through that, right? Because our corrupt government system.
There's a lot that's wrong with it. And
but it's like the idea of like, say, like the Charlie Kirk stuff versus like, say, the some of the like Democratic people who, there was like a Democratic like official, I can't remember their name, but they were shot and killed by some crazy wacko, right? And it's interesting because like the right-wingy people who identify as that, they were celebrating when that left-leaning or left-wing politician got killed. And then when Charlie Kirk gets killed, they're like, basically they're celebrating. And it's like, wrong is wrong.
It's all wrong.
It's wrong. You know what I mean? So it's like, this wrong is wrong. Now there's ways to go about it if you want to deal with it, but wrong is wrong. And so you either live by principle, or you can just be honest with yourself and say, well, I don't actually live by principle. I live by a sort of a undulating code of ethics that will basically be applied only if you sort of agree with me or disagree with me. Right? Like, because that's really what it comes down to. Oh, I like this guy, so it's cool. Versus, oh no, I don't like that guy, so we can do bad harm.
We all have our bias, right?
We have our
bias. Now, can you recognize it and see where that bias is kind of taking over, and your judgment is impaired, and you celebrate these terrible things? Or I don't.
It's like the free speech and cancel stuff.
Yeah,
cancel culture, right? Where it's like, okay, you can say, like, if you think that we shouldn't have this cancel culture, then we shouldn't be around trying to cancel other people when they're having something that they want to say, right? It's like, that's the whole thing. It's like, you get to say what you want to say. This is America.
On both sides. And there's ramifications
and like
for that.
And trust me, there's lots of stuff that people say I do not agree with even one bit. I think they're idiots. I think they're complete idiots, but it's like it's their right that's been given to them as a citizen of the United States, and I think you got to like own that versus you're ready to give this stuff up because you don't like what they're saying. Because then you're like, what happens when they get spinned around? Anyway, sorry, we're getting turned into political.
No, but it's important. Like I think it's important just to think about,
But it kind of goes back to distraction. That's like we're talking about distractions. Think about how many people get sort of sideswiped with the way that the media portrays everything. Instead of basically people banding together in some of these different situations, like again, the healthcare one would be like an easy one. Everybody would be on board with that. But instead we're like fighting about like weird social issues that affect like such a small minority of people, or, every issue that comes up always has this nice like divide where there's always like, we're never like, hey, we're all on board on this. It's like, no. Like, it's like, again, I made a joke, like, some guy ate a cheese sandwich at a Subway and somehow they're going to be like, one media outlet's going to hate him, one media outlet's going to love him. Boom. We got to have this clear divide because we got to keep people divided and angry and distracted.
Right. And distractions kind of.
The news is a huge one.
Terrible. Well, all that stuff. Yeah. All that stuff. Just limit it. I would say give yourself some kind of guardrails around this stuff.
Well, you also got to figure out where's your news coming from, because like a lot of news, it's paid for by someone's paying for it. So some person is basically giving you an opinion that's being funded to them by someone else, right? So they're just lying to you. It's like we're talking about the guys shilling for different companies. There's nothing wrong with running an advertisement if you want to make some money and stuff like that. But at the same time, when you get people that are like, oh, this supplement's amazing, I use it every single day. Like, well, you've talked about it. Like, this is your first time ever talking about it. Like, you just got paid for them. You know what I mean? Like, again, if you want to run the advertisement, hey, like, this is the chip, here's whatever it is. But it's that same thing where you get these news things where all of a sudden there was this non-issue 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden is the biggest issue everywhere. And you have these strong convictions as a news anchor. You're like, well, who's paying you? Who's paying you to say this? Like, and even the independent media, like the sort of the YouTubers and so forth, some of them are not like as independent as people think, because they're getting funded by companies that then are like basically shaping their decisions. And so you got to be really mindful of where you get the stuff from. And again, to me, anybody that's coming at you that's really just trying to like get you really pissed off about everything, I think you got to be careful, because again, it's like if you find all of a sudden your emotional strings are being pulled constantly, it doesn't mean that you won't ever get pulled, because obviously some bad stuff happens and you can feel a certain way about it. But if you're constantly getting pulled one way or another way from some news outlet, you really have to be mindful of that, because it keeps you distracted on what's important. And then there's a lot of important things that could be tackled, but instead we're bouncing around every 2 weeks to some new issue that's bigger than this one. And then somehow we forget about other stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's like real issues that that basically were going on 2 years ago that were huge, and they're still going on, and we don't even think about it anymore because the news is like, well, they're not paying attention to that anymore. We got to move on to something else. We got to keep them shocked somewhere else. Yep. All right, guys. So this will end our 3-part series that I sort of dubbed my birthday message to myself from 20 years ago. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe you got something from it. Big thank you guys for listening to it. And if you enjoyed it, let us know. You can shoot us a message over at our Gmail account at the Jiu-Jitsu podcast at Gmail. Send us a message on Instagram. You can obviously, if the particular podcast app that you have has some function to rate us, give us a positive review if you think we've earned it. To leave you guys with a quote, because we've been doing that a bit. This came from I was reading some of his work recently. A guy named Thomas Sowell.
I know that guy.
Do you know that guy?
Yeah.
Have you read any of his stuff?
I have. I've seen some of his, he's lectured a little bit. I've seen some of that. So I don't know if I've read any of his books.
I just read he had a memoir. I just read his memoir recently. I've read a few of his books over the years.
Is he like 90s, 80s?
Yeah,
90s?
he's an old guy. Yeah. He was born way back in the day. But he, a lot of people hate him. Because he's a bit of a controversial figure.
Yeah, that's all right.
Which is fine. It's like, I don't, it is what it is. But there's a really cool, one of his quotes, one of his phrases that he said, it's a signature of his, which I think is really it's always useful to think about. He has this phrase that is, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. I think it's a useful thing. In jiu-jitsu, you can think of it as where every time, let's say every problem you fix creates more problems. Hey, this person's doing this pass. Well, I do this to stop that pass. And then I go for the sweep. Well, then now they're doing this to counter that sweep. And then, there's always a problem created. And so like, again, his whole thing is that no matter what, there's always a trade-off. There's no like perfect solution. There's no solution that brings everything into harmonious balance. It's mainly looking at like, for every decision you make, there's going to be some issues with it. Which ones are you happier with?
Yep.
Right. Look at the trade-offs that are going to be created. And I think that's a useful thing to look at with your life, right? Because there's no way to like just have everything in this perfect balance or whatever, right? Like you're going to have to like make some decisions. And sometimes like, for instance, maybe if you spend more family time, it creates an issue where maybe you have to let go of a little bit of money, or maybe if you chase this money for a little bit, you're going to have less family time, and then you got to go home and your relationship with them is strained or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's these give and takes everywhere. And so it's a useful thing to think about when you're making decisions. And he's an economist. So that was his whole thing, is looking at economy, like basically the way things work and how they're interconnected. So anyway, that's the podcast, guys. That was the last episode of this series. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll have our next one coming up next week, and we appreciate you as always. All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed the series today. And again, if you guys want to support the podcast, you can check out our sponsors. Athletic mints are microdose THC mints with other cannabinoids and compounds to produce different effects. They've got 3 different mints: Power, Flow, and Rebound. My personal favorite is the Rebound because it's kind of the recovery thing. I've got plenty of like energy throughout the day, but again, when it's time to relax, that's sometimes the tough one for me. The brain's going. I've got a small business, like some of you guys do. Maybe you just got stuff racing through your brain. You just keep going, and it just sort of takes the edge off. And I like it. And again, it's not the effect is not super profound. It's not like you're just, super high or anything like that. Like I remember one of the guys came to the gym to do a seminar, and he heard us talking about CBD, and he went to this little like shop up the street, and
gas station.
It was like a little
like smoke shop.
Yeah. And they gave him like a Delta 9 or something, which basically is just, it's just like, there's a small difference in the comment. Basically, he got high as a kite. So the guy was like, yeah, just here's this, and these are whatever. And he ate one of the gummies and said they were really good. So he ate like 3 or 4 of them. And then because I remember I picked him up the next day, and he looked really tired, and he basically got really high, went down to the downstairs in the hotel and was just eating all their honey buns. This is not that kind of effect, right? This is not that kind of thing. This is like very mellow, right? Just kind of takes the edge off with the Rebound one. And again, the Flow state is here to help you get into more relaxed state, to be more creative. And, you can use it when you're training and things like that. There's all kinds of cool stuff. If you want to check them out, go to their website, athletic, ATHLETHC.com. And the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu10 to save 10% off the order. If you guys want to check out our friends over at Epic Roll, check out their website, epicrollbjj.com. They make a lot of good gear, good gis, good rash guards and shorts, t-shirts, the whole deal. Good quality stuff, good designs, great customer service. I get my stuff made through them currently because, again, I like the quality of it. They literally make my favorite rash guards is the way they fit. And I say that with no like hyperbole. I'm not saying that because they sponsor the podcast. Literally, I get my rash guards made through them because like I've worn different ones. I've had companies send me different stuff. Some of them fit too tight around my chest. Some of them aren't tight enough around the arms and all that stuff. And they do a great job. So I really like their stuff. If you want to check them out, I think you'll be happy with what you get from them. EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order is the coupon code to save at checkout. Also, guys, if you want to check out our sponsor, Charlotte's Web, with their particular supplements, I tell people just with any supplement, try it out for yourself and see. Again, they make CBD products. They have CBN products, functional mushroom products like reishi and lion's mane. They also have balms and rubs for your muscles, and they've been around in the CBD space. They're one of the OGs of the CBD space, and they make a terrific product that's third-party tested so that when you look at the label, you know exactly what's in there, because that's important with a product that's still not regulated by the FDA. The FDA does some stuff that I don't like, but at the same time, there is at least some thing there that if this thing's got a little stamp on it, then this is what's in that label. Although sometimes you have to know how to read those labels properly, because you can have things like proprietary blends in there. But nonetheless, they make a really good product or set of products. And again, for me, CBD becomes a recovery thing. I want to, deal with helps with the idea of stress, in inflammation due to our exercise and sports and everything else. And it can be just helpful to supporting that, right? That's really what it comes down to. This is not gonna, you're not gonna take this and magically you're gonna, recover like you're 20 years old again, but everything's just like percentages, supplements, diet, sleep, all of those things just kind of improve percentages and move the needle in the right direction. So again, I would tell you that if your sleep and diet and all that stuff sucks, just maybe wait. But if your sleep, your diet, all those things are pretty decent, and then you can start getting into the supplements, and CBD could be a good one. Check it out at charlottesweb.com. And the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu 30 for 30% off the order. It's a great deal, 30%. Also, guys, Patreon. If you guys want to check out our Patreon website to support the podcast directly and become a Patreon member, do that at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. You get access, obviously, to exclusive content on the Patreon there. We have some other perks for you. You can get messages to us directly. We have extra episodes of the podcast or extra clips of the podcast that aren't released anywhere else. Plus, there's some recordings of seminars and stretching routines and things like that we've put together for you guys as a bonus. If you guys want to get access to it, roll on over there at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, guys, one of the things that I find for a lot of people is they lack focus with their training. They don't really know what their goals are. They're just kind of getting into the gym and kind of going through the motions. So focusing on something specific is really helpful. And if you guys would like a guide to help you do that, if you go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN, I have a video and an ebook that goes along with it. So if you want to read or if you want to listen or do both, and it's free to you. And when you join up, I'll send you a daily email, my Chew Crew daily email, which this whole series has been sort of based on. So if you like it, you'll like the email. But nonetheless, you can get through the guide there, and it'll give you 12 different strategies on how to get a little bit more focused with your training. If you want to get access to it, you can just go to my website and get it at chewjitsu.net/join. So guys, with that said, appreciate y'all for being here, and we'll see you next week.